Hey guys, um, hope you're doing well. This week we have a probably the earliest midweek video we've ever had, and that's because of something special that I want to do for this Wednesday. So I wanted to get the video out to you quickly. But before I get to that, let me just kind of recap what we talked about on Sunday. So we started, I hate to call them a series, but we started a time in our teaching where we're going to be discussing the end times. Jesus says that Jesus and all of the New Testament authors, they say that we live in a time that is described as the end times. It's the time before when Jesus left and the time before he comes back. And that middle portion there is called the end times. And we see that last week or last Sunday, it's important for us to not just know that, but to know and understand the times, because how we understand the times is going to help us to set our expectations as to what we should be expecting. It's going to give us the right lens on how we view reality, and it's going to help to encourage us to keep our eyes focused on the kingdom that is coming, where we are going to experience the perfection and the completeness that we so long for. And if we don't understand the times that we're living in, we can find ourselves offended with God. And so we talked about that. We talked about how, Jesus says the kickoff to all this is the ending of the abomination of desolation, or essentially the tearing down of the Jewish temple. And once that happens, we're going to see a time of tribulation, and then Jesus is going to come back, which places us directly in the tribulation now. And so last week we talked about that, why that was important for us to understand that. We saw that Jesus's encouragement to us was for us to be on alert and to be on guard, essentially to make sure that we don't find ourselves completely immersed, to be a part of the world. Like, we're not crazy, we're not Amish in the sense of like separating ourselves. We are to be in the world but not of it, but to not be drunken by the things that are happening in this world, to not have our foundations be this world when Jesus is shaking those very foundations. But we're called to actually look to the world that we're made for, the new heavens and the new earth, and to be encouraged in our foundation. And while we're here in this world, that we will be on guard and that we wouldn't be moved by what's happening around us. We wouldn't be moved by the things that are shaking around us, that we would be here, live righteously, be light, but we wouldn't be shaken in the same way that people would be who don't have hope in Jesus. And so that's what we talked about last week. This coming week, we're going to be talking about, considering we're in the tribulation now, what does Jesus say the tribulation will look like? Because I don't want us to view the tribulation as just this time of just absolute chaos, because it is, but at the same time, there are some specifics to it. And it's very, very important that we get it. So last week we talked about understanding the times. This week we're going to talk about being in tribulation and understanding what that means for us, and also seeing what does Jesus say about the church in the tribulation. And so that's coming this week. But the reason I'm sending you guys this video so early is because this is my call for everyone, but specifically the people who have not been really making it onto the prayer, whether it be out in the meetings or on the Google Meet. I implore every single member of the Fellowship Church to come to prayer this Wednesday. And what I'm going to do is we're going to revert back to the Google Meet just this week, for the simple fact of I want as many of us on the call as possible, and I want as many of us to be together as possible. And so, we were usually running between 12 to 16, 17 people. If the whole church comes out, we'll have more than that. But my goal is for us to be together, because what I want to do is I want us to be able to pray as a church. When we see all these things happening around us, our job is not to live in fear. Our job is not to respond in anger or pride. Our job is to pray. And this is a time where we need to be praying for our country. But not only that, we need to be praying for each other. When you have things like current events that are happening like this, it's almost impossible for everybody to be unaffected. Some people, maybe they're not affected, they're just going about their day. but some of us are. And so it's important that one, we pray for the nation together, but also that we pray for each other together. And so I'm gonna hold a Google Meet like we were doing previously, where all of us can be on there. And I would encourage you, if you haven't been able to make it, try and make this week a priority. This is who we are. This is, some of you guys we haven't seen since the quarantine. But that's not what I want for this week. I want us to be together because we are a church who prays together. And if we're not praying together, Jesus says that my Father's house will be called a house of prayer. And so this is the most of who we are, is we are God's children coming to him together. And so if you can't, I get it, but my desire is that every single one of us will be able to make this prayer call. So be on lookout in the group me for the link. And this is family time. So I love you guys, and I will see you on the call Wednesday. Bye. Don't give your soul